welcome back everyone for another episode of Stravinsky Analysis. I'm really excited to get into this one. We've made it all the way to the third section of the Rite of Spring, so let's keep going. I'm really excited that we got through that first section. I'm also experimenting with some formatting things in this video, so I will have played the sections or brief excerpts from the sections that we're going to analyze today just before this section, and then I hope to cut two examples of that as I've been doing before after I analyze each section. If you have any comments about how I'm analyzing this, or you think that there's something that I missed, please put it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Okay, let's jump right into it and get into this analysis. Okay, so we have reached here the ritual of abduction. Now, this is very energetic music, especially in the piccolo trumpet. That's what I really hear in this. It's in D, so I gotta really hear this quite strongly actually when you listen to it. So let's play a little excerpt just from the beginning of this section. Get kind of acquainted with the sound. Here it is. So you hear it's this huge flurry, and it comes from both winds and from the trumpet. We have essentially here, right after this movement concludes, it's almost like he's building towards something, and then he just arrives at this next movement. And the next movement is really the arrival from the previous movement. Also, I'm trying to move my screens around and stuff, so this is a little bit less awkward because I gotta look at the YouTube video and resume it and look at this screen to do my analysis, and then just trying to make things a little bit more streamlined. It's actually hard. Okay, so first of all, we land here. We have the horns playing a C major chord, and 4 of the horns hit the C major chord like this. Root is doubled. Root is usually always doubled. Everyone knows that. If you've taken a theory class with me, double the root, double the root. Good job, Stravinsky. So horns 1 to 4 play a sustained chord. Horns 5 to 8 articulate that chord. So this is this orchestrational principle of having one instrument being your sustaining sound and one being your articulating sound. Very common. It gives a little bit more punch at the beginning of things. So this is a C major chord, so I expect some polychordal treatment to this. And then we have trumpets, and they are playing, nice. They are playing an E flat 7 chord. So this is the chord. If there's nothing else underneath it. This suggests C plus E flat 7. They meet at a common tone, which is G, which is the tone that Stravinsky has doubled. No, sorry. Stravinsky has doubled the C. I'm wrong. Transpositions. He's doubled the G on the score. See, it looks like a G. Pesky Stravinsky. Okay, let's look at everything else. Okay, so the strings are articulating a C down at the bottom. Bass and cello articulate that fifth with, again, staccatissimo articulation. Boom. Nice. We get this polychord. Timpani also articulates. So from his articulating instruments, we have timpani, 4 horns, and then low strings, cello, bass. No one else articulates, so that's all he needs. And then from that articulation, he sustains sound in both the trumpets, 4 trumpets, and 4 horns with this chord. You could think of it as like a C flat 9, but it also has a split chord tone, which is the E. The E is split. You have an E natural and an E flat. I think it's better to think about this from a polychordal perspective, because we know that that's kind of how Stravinsky was thinking about these chords when he was writing them, like the Petrushka chord, which is C and F sharp. So these chords he's thinking about in a polychordal way, so I think that that's how he's constructing it. He's taking 2 previously known structures and fusing them together to create a third new novel structure. These chords are now used more commonly in today's music, but I think he's probably thinking about them like this. Also, how he's orchestrated it, like you can see very clearly in the horns that the horns here all have one sonority, and the trumpets here all have another sonority. And they're just connected by the middle note. The bottom note here of the trumpets and the top note here of the horns are the same. So he connects them like that, merges these two sonorities together. Because they're both brass, they're going to blend decently well, but the trumpet does have a little bit more edge to its sound. So just because of that little edgier sound, I think that the trumpet is probably going to... There's going to be some divide between these two textures. The fact that he has 5 trumpets really helps, so then he can have this solo in the piccolo trumpet. I think when we arrive here, there actually isn't any primary material because we wait for the primary material to come in. Primary material is definitely this. Now, he's saying sola, and I think what he means by that is that it's a solo, but with other people. It's not, you're like the principal part, but not the only part. Another term for this is soli, which is what I recommend students write if they're writing wind gestures, that all the winds are playing together, but it's like the main principal material, right? Soli, so they know, I need to project this. This isn't just background music. This is principal material. I'm just going to quickly look at these winds. Flute, oboe, and clarinet in D are all playing the same pitch material. And then piccolo is added on a due, and that is added on at the moment that the oboe drops out. This oboe part is insanely high. This high G, by the way, that G is really high for the oboe to play. So all of this is the same. And marcatissimo. Good marking, actually. Marcatissimo. So when you want to create this effect, this really brutal, frenetic almost effect, yeah, marcatissimo. It's key to note here that he's actually continuing these offbeat effects down here in the timpani and the bass drum. So you're having this like really brutal, still rhythmic effect. Again, this piece is known for its command of rhythm and how it utilizes rhythm, the revitalization of rhythm. So obviously I should probably talk about rhythm more than I have been to this point. Okay, let's look into what everyone else is doing. So, oh gosh, I have to read alto clef. Practice your alto clef. That's all I can say. That's a C sharp and a A sharp. So those are the the middle 2 notes of that E flat 7 chord. The E flat 7 chord is in first inversion, so G, B flat, D flat, E flat. The middle 2 notes there are those notes in the violas. So the violas are articulating that. They're playing a tremolo, non divisi. So again, more sound from non divisi, less sound from divisi. More sound here. And then let's see, what is everyone else doing? The other strings are also non divisi, and they are playing a giant C chord that has a split third. E flat on top, E natural on the bottom. So really, when we look at this texture, Stravinsky is doing 3 things. I'm going to circle them. First thing, he's setting up a background texture. So he has the pedal notes, which are horns and trumpets. Those are pedal notes sustaining the pitches behind everything. When I say pedal notes, I'm talking about like on a piano. If you press down the pedal, it sustains all the pitches. The pitches just keep playing, right? Here, I'll put my pedal down. I press this chord. The notes keep vibrating. They keep going. They just don't stop. It's like playing a harp. My harp's over here. And it's considered pedaling. You're sustaining all the pitches. So in orchestra, we don't really have the ability to put down a pedal and just sustain whatever notes someone played. So instead, we have to actually have an instrument come in and play that note for an extended period of time. So pedaling happens in this way. He's actually creating kind of a pianistic effect here. These strike and give a sense of articulation, like the beginning of the note, and then everyone else sustains to pedal those pitches through. It's not always done this way in orchestral music. Sometimes the composer will choose to just, for instance, pedal one specific pitch from a harmony. So like Mozart might single out the oboe or the horn and have them sustain a single pitch from the harmony to kind of glue everything together and have that through line where just one pitch is sustained throughout the entire passage. In this case, Stravinsky is doing this with the horns and the trumpets. And then to make that texture interesting, because we talked about texture last time, Stravinsky had some seriously genius textures. So if you haven't seen the last video, go check it out. Where he's creating very complex textures, which are basically just constant 16th notes, but he does it in a way that creates a lot of depth of texture. So here he's also doing that. He's got the sustaining pad in the background. That's the pop music term. And then on top of that, he's got the strings, or the first and second violins, which are creating this rustling. When the second violins go up, the first violins go down, and they alternate back and forth to create kind of a dynamic texture that has a lot of musical energy to it. So they could just all play the same notes, but it would have a little bit less dynamicism than when it is interacting like this. Oh, I forgot to circle the violas here. Let's add those guys in. Never forget the violas. They're people too. Okay, and then he has his secondary element here, or it kind of sounds like primary element, but it's not like melodic or anything, so I'm just going to say secondary, which is these articulations. At first we land with the strings. So, boom! We land with the strings and the brass and the timpani, and then we go to just the percussion to maintain that rhythmic gesture. You can see here that it interlocks very nicely. So the rhythmic gesture happens, and then as soon as the rhythmic gesture discontinues, the solo material takes off. So wonderful texture from Stravinsky. I'm just going to quickly look through and check out his melodic material, because I'm always curious the melodic material that composers choose to use. So in this case, his melodic material is in D major. Just like, great, Stravinsky, thanks. You had to write some like bitonal stuff, right? It's like we have the C chord and then we have E flat 7 on top of it. So we have this. And then we get a D major melody over top of this. It's really wild. So it's like we have almost two keys here, or again, this idea that like bitonality, people are playing in different regions. So these guys have C, these guys have E flat 7, these guys have D major. He kind of goes into D. It kind of slips from D major into D minor at the end with the... No, sorry, it doesn't. It kind of slips into A minor. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, let's listen to this passage again. So we're listening. Primary element is this punching rhythm and then this frenetic trumpet and wind gesture, marked marcatissimo. Probably going to hear the piccolo trumpet the most prominently. And then I'm also going to be listening very carefully for this background texture. I specifically want to see how the strings are interacting. So here we go. I'll play that for you. Okay, so you can really hear it there, this frenetic wind gesture, and then also the pounding rhythms. Because the strings are playing all the time very quickly and the horns are just sustaining, they don't really jump to the forefront. It actually feels like the music freezes for a moment right after the first articulation. Everything freezes. Then we have these rhythmic shots, and then the new gesture takes off. Okay. I thought I skipped something, but the next page is actually just wild. Okay. Oh no. Don't go down there. Okay, go back up. All right, so it looks like we've got some scales and some little flourishes here, which Stravinsky really likes to do, in 5 oboes, or 4 oboes and an English horn. Great. And the strings are doing descending things, and everyone is doing different things. Lovely. So if we look at this, it's pretty clear that the flutes are obviously doing something that's not super important. They have this idea, another dominant 7th chord, in this case, a B dominant 7th chord. So not particularly, I guess it's related through common tone to the E flat. The E flat enharmonically switches to a D sharp. So enharmonic, some kind of enharmonic common tone relationship between the E flat 7 and the B7 chord. Interesting. I'm going to note that down. B7. And then we have these flourishes in the oboes, which are going to probably sound quite energetic. It's low range oboe. Low range oboe has a lot of intensity, a lot of duck power. Clarinet's in B flat. Oh, what? Clarinet's in B flat, playing a B natural. You kidding me? Oh, they're alternating between... Oh, weird. Okay, so they have B, F. They have this diminished 7th chord. Oh gosh. Stravinsky, what you doing to me? Is that the chord? B7 with literally a B diminished 7th underneath it? Okay. Huh. Alright, I gotta listen to that actually to see if this is a really super dense harmony or if this is actually just if I'm hearing things. Okay, we'll have to go a little bit further than that. Okay, this is the section remember. Frenetic winds. Okay, right here, listening for the chord. The chord that I expect to hear is this chord. Okay, it's wild. Oh. I knew that, so when I started this project, I knew that this piece was going to be hard and that it was going to challenge me and that it was going to be super dense and I would be very uncomfortable at some times. Now I realize what I've done to myself. Okay. Yeah, I guess this is, he's just trying to create a mush. The oboes are arriving on the B7 chord. Okay, so the oboes, B7 is across all of these guys. English horn is great. It's playing a G sharp. Because, no, it's playing an F. Sorry, it's playing an F. No, it's not. D sharp. It's playing a G sharp. It's playing a G sharp. Great. Which is part of the 2nd chord. So it's part of this chord. So oboes and flutes are all doing this B7 chord. And then we have English horn. Leave out the piccolo clarinets doing the A from the previous gesture. That's all. Their previous gesture is landing there on the B7 chord, actually. You can see it down here. And then, ooh, the horns land on E flat 7 and the trumpets land on B7. So he combines these two chords. Sweet. Oh, this is great. This is more than I was expecting. Excellent. Thank you, Stravinsky. Oh, wait, no. That E flat 7 will transpose down a 5th, so it's actually A flat 7. So we have this plus... Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because the A flat 7 and B flat 7 in first inversion fits onto that, and it feels like upper extensions of the A flat 7 chord. Very cool. That's very cool. So we arrive at A flat 7 here, and we have B7 here. Because A flat 7 and then the A natural sounds like the minor 9th. And then the B natural is a split third. It could be C flat as a minor third, and then you have the major third underneath. So he's doing the same thing that he has been doing this entire time, which is combining chords in a way that splits the third, so that there's always a major third and always a minor third in all of his chords. Really cool. That's actually a big thing to identify in this piece, because that seems like a trend. His very first chord is the E major chord with the E flat 7 on it, split third there, G natural, G sharp. And he seems to be really playing this up throughout the entire piece. There's a lot of moments like this where he combines chords in a way that have split thirds. I'm just really unsure of this B diminished seventh chord. I feel like that shouldn't be there, but I'm reading B, A. Now I'm reading it correctly, and it's starting to make more sense. The C sharp transposes to B, the B transposes to A. That's in a B7 chord. The G transposes to F. Great. And then the F transposes to E flat. That makes sense. E flat's in the chord. The G doesn't make sense though. The G should transpose to F. So we have like an F natural in here, which is splitting the seventh of the A flat chord. Probably not going to hear a lot of A flat in this passage. I believe he's just using that as like a transitional sonority. Okay, so I'm wrong about this. This is not B flat diminished seventh. We'll go away from that analysis, and instead it's looking more like a. It kind of looks like B flat 7 or B7. I think this whole thing is supposed to be B7. And then that's A flat. Oh, he does have the A flat there in the bass clarinet. No, not in the bass clarinet, B flat clarinet. Okay, so he is doing, this is A flat here. A flat 7. Oh gosh, tenor clef. Practice your tenor clef. My tenor clef, really bad. G sharp. Oh, nice. It's the A flat 7 chord. Well, that makes life really easy because I guess I can read tenor clef, even when it has G sharp minor chords. Yeah. Okay. So it's like that. Sweet. A flat 7 plus B7. Great thing to add together. Splits the third and sounds like an A flat flat 9 chord. Neat. Okay, orchestrationally, what's going on here? I think clarinets 100% and flutes, the open sounding winds are creating background texture. That's very clear that they're creating background texture. I think that the bassoons and the strings are creating propulsive motion. And I think that the timpani and horn are playing principal material until the arrival of all of the horns and the violins at the end of the third measure. And then we definitely have a trombone solo for 4 notes while the winds go crazy with this background texture. All right, that page took me a lot longer than I wanted. So we got background texture here. We've got like secondary energetic texture here. He doesn't put too many players on the secondary material. That's actually like something that's interesting to think about. Here he has 3 flutes, 3 clarinets, so 6 instrumentalists, plus 5 oboes playing these sort of background gestures. Yeah. To create this background texture, that's 11 people. And then on these runs, he only has violas and 1 bassoon at all times. So really not that much. So small amount on those moving lines, a lot on the background texture, and then very loud instruments playing the principal material. So I'm just going to highlight the arrival chord as the principal material, and then it definitely goes into this here. This is principal material. Brass, 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 brass. Now, that's really key to note that it is brass. This is definitely going to be background, and then this is going to be embellishing material because he's been using these flutter tongues as embellishing material for a large portion of this piece. I'll give the anacrusis here. of the first violin, primary status. Up to this point, he has not used brass particularly thematically until this point. They haven't really come in and played like a giant chorale or something like that. So starting to use the brass more prominently here, where this piccolo trumpet takes a solo, and then we have big brass moment here with lots of drums, that kind of thing. I think that Stravinsky is starting to open up his orchestra a little bit more. Really, the horns were just mostly used for the big hits in the previous section, and then the piccolo trumpet had some solos. So big brass moment here where they kind of accumulate these chords. Let's go through just quickly and analyze those chords. I'm like 100% sure they're going to have the same notes in the, yeah, they do, in the violins. So violins are just playing the top notes of that. That's it. The chord is... looks like... wonderful. It's the same chord that we've been having this entire time. It is a major chord with an inverted dominant seventh on the top, which is unrelated to the chord, and it moves up chromatically from E to G. So it's just a chromatic line with parallel chords. This is like old school Ravel orchestration, where you just choose a chord that you really like. Doesn't matter what the chord is. Here, let's have a Debussy chord. And then you just slide this chord around with your melody. And you just orchestrate it in a way that the line that is most important is in the instrument that has the most prominence in that register. So if the bottom line is the most important, then you give it to like, I don't know, like cellos in their high range, and then everything else is in like low flutes and piccolos or something. And then you don't hear the upper part seems more like ghost notes than the bottom part, where you give everything to string harmonics above, and then it has this like Claude Vivier kind of sound, like Lonely Child, that sort of thing, where he's spilling out the harmonics above the principal melody note. So here we have E major in this case with G7 on top of it. And then that just goes up chromatically. We arrive then at a trombone melody. Ah, Stravinsky! So it goes up through a major chord and then steps down to the minor third. See, it's like he's got one idea. His one idea is just like, isn't it cool that we can split the third? That's like the main idea. And when I read an article and it says that he was thinking about this one chord, this E major chord with the E flat 7 as the derivative chord that drives this entire work, you just see it everywhere. Like every page I've been on, I've found pitch material that supports that hypothesis. Nice. Okay, we have this is a giant gesture. Let's just quickly look at this. So the trombone solo, the trombone actually plays 5 notes, and then it passes off to another, to 2 other trombones, the other 2 trombones, and then they play a soli. Again, right, soli, when it's 2 people doing something together. Excellent. So, clearly some kind of embellishment gesture. Underneath it, we've got some kind of sustained texture. Very key. He uses these trills for sustained textures in the winds all the time. He clearly loves that. And I think why is it creates a lot of energy in the background texture rather than just writing a sustained note. A sustained note has no motion in it, but these trills have a ton of motion and energy in them. So it feels like nervous, frenetic energy. Also, this is one of my favorite parts. This in the horns. It's like, oh, really powerful. So we're getting there. Here, the winds start this, and then the strings continue. He writes here, glissando détaché. So what he wants here instead is a gliss, but to bow it like that, I think. So, he writes a chromatic scale. Primary material is obviously trombone. Okay, let's listen to this section. Whoa. Gotta listen to that again. This goes by so fast. never going to get through this whole piece. Never. No, it's further than that. Okay, here we go. Okay, you actually really hear that. So you hear the horns go up, doing that gesture, sliding up. It's just, it really feels like a chromatic scale, but you can hear that harmonic content underneath it. The split chord tone with the seventh and the major chord. And then you hear the trombone, right? And then you're really not hearing these trills in the background, but they're creating a ton of energy and noise, which is awesome. And then you really hear the strings and the flutes when they come down right after. So initially we have oboes that do this descending gesture, and then that they pass off to the flutes and the strings to do the descending gesture after that. Pitch content, when analyzing these, the flutes are probably not going to be playing the same pitches. Probably going to be playing different pitches. Let's look at it. Okay. E flat. Oh, I know what he's doing. I know what he's doing. I see you, Stravinsky. Okay, so E flat, D flat, B, and G. In G, the alto flute transposes down a fourth. Guys and girls, I've been saying that the alto flute this entire time transposes down a perfect fifth. It does not. It's in G. So it transposes down a perfect fourth. I'm sorry. Or up a perfect fourth. No, not up a perfect fourth. That would be wild. Down a perfect fourth. Oops. That's embarrassing. Anyways, so that gives us the E7, the E flat 7 chord. So it's an E flat 7 chord just sliding down chromatically in the flutes. As a composer, it sometimes is fun to ask the question, like, why has Stravinsky chosen these specific chords to start gestures? I answered the question about the initial arrival chord here. It's very clearly he wants this kind of minor ninth sonority with the split chord tone. And then sliding up, he does the same thing. But like, why does he start the chord on E in that case? Like, why is E his arrival point there? So we could then look here at the timpani, which has, and then the E7 chord picks up from there. I'm not really sure if that gives us any hints. B, the horn is playing the same pitches as the high timpani. That's really cool. That's really, 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 really cool. I'm so glad I didn't just move on. Okay, check this out. Horn and high timpani are together, but there is no support for the bottom timpani. And I think why he's doing that is because he knows, if anyone has ever played timpani, I played timpani in high school, and if you've ever played timpani, you know that those top drums are really weird. Like, they have really weird overtones, and they have an extremely like weird sound. They have like a, I don't know how to describe it. Just you hit it and it doesn't sound quite like the full-bodied sound of the timpani that you would like it to have. So I think what he's doing here actually is he just doubles it with a low horn, and the horn just goes pop at the same time that the timpani hits the note, just for a little bit of reinforcement, because that note's going to be weaker than the low timpani. So he knows the timpani jumping this huge amount, it's a seventh, jumping a major seventh, is going to dramatically change the sound quality of the timpani. So reinforce that higher timpani with a horn. Genius. Orchestration. Reinforce your timpani with horn. High timpani with horn. Why does he choose the E7 chord with the G7 chord here after this passage? Okay, so he's had a lot of A flat and B flat 7. Maybe it's like, you could think of it like the B7 resolving to the E7. That's like the tonal way to think about it, right? B7, where does B7 go? B7 would pretty naturally go to E7. That's pretty nice move. So maybe he's thinking about it like that, and that kind of contextualizes getting from the one to the other one. The A flat 7 is just basically discontinued at this moment, and those chords slide up. And then from there he goes to A in the trombone. So I think that's probably the case. So here we have pitch content of B going to pitch content E going to pitch content A. So we have circle of fifths. Nice. Decoded. Normally I record these videos in the morning, so I'm recording it now at night. It's like 8:30 at night. I go to bed at 9:30 because I'm an old man. And yeah, so I'm probably a little bit loopy now. Having a great time though. Look at the chord that Stravinsky decides to write for the upper strings. Pizzicato, pizzicato. I'm really sorry, string players, that you have to play this. That's real fast pizzicato, and they don't line up with the bar lines, and they have accents. I'm very sorry. Oh, that's really fast, yeah. Okay, so very clearly here, if you ever listen to this passage, you know that the horn is the primary material. Yeah, and then it goes here. Very clearly. Whoa. That's some high violas. No, that's not violas. That's violin twos. Aha. Oh. Oh, I see what he's done. So when he had that descending... Okay, this is... My analysis was all off. When he had that descending string gesture, it was the E flat 7 chord. And he just broke it into violin solos. So 4 violin soloists. It gives that like raw, folky kind of sound to it. And doesn't make the violin quality overpower the wind quality in that gesture. A solo violin is going to sound more akin to a wind player than a solo string or a string section, because they'll have the huge chorus effect. Gets a really European sound. And then it just continues here with all of the first violins doing these pizzicati. So it's really just one line, even though it looks like a huge giant mess all over the page. That's probably just background texture, for sure, background texture. You have this little bit of connecting material here where we have the cello and then the bass. So cello. So it's arpeggiating through an A chord with split chord tones, essentially. So this is like A7 with split 3. It's what we've been expecting this entire time. The other analysis of it is what am I playing wrong? Playing something wrong. Ah, that's what it is. A flat 7 plus C7. That's what it is. It's minor third. The 7th chords are minor third apart. Okay, this is connecting material. It's not really thematic, but sure. And then all of this stuff becomes subsumed into the texture. What chord do we have here? Almost like we have an E flat 7 chord. And with that lovely E flat 7 chord, we get gifted this lovely A. So we have E flat 7 and then yeah, it's playing it like D on top of that. Again, we have this almost like polychordal. It's not really. It's like he's adding 2 chords together. They're functioning together, and then he'll superimpose a different element on top, but it's in a different key. He's been doing this the whole time. Since the very first measures of this piece. Starts the piece, and the bassoon and the horn that come in are just not in the same key. The horn is playing like C sharps and the bassoon's playing a bunch of C major stuff. Okay, let's listen to this gorgeous horn part. It's one of my favorite horn parts. Love this horn part. Okay. That's cool, right? Yeah, it's really neat. It's a great gesture for film music, and it's been stolen a lot for that. Hear it in like all the movie scores when it's like danger, something's happening, high horns. Just doing that. Also, you just observe the quality that the horn has at this range. In this range, it's a horns, so they have a little bit more punch. And he's put a third horn on the articulations of the first two that have accents. So even more punch on those. And just before these horns are getting out of the staff at written pitch, they're starting to get that really brilliant, loud, almost heroic horn tone. Above that, you're going to get horns, and they're going to just make mistakes because it gets really hard to play in tune up there and accurately play your pitches. And then we have this little gesture on top, which is looks like it's in E flat, following an E flat chord. Cool. And then okay, so here this gives a better representation of what's happening in the background texture. You can see down here that the first violins are just plunking away on this little pizzicati figure. And these guys are just hanging out right here. I bet that is going to pop through because it's marked double forte. I'm going to put this as primary material. And this is probably all connected like that. This is some advanced orchestration right here. He's splitting the roll here of the strings a little bit. So he's got like some tremolo strings just before they do this gesture that happens at the same time as the trumpets. But it's the same pitch as the trumpets. So for that reason, I think that material is probably quite important. Oh, how nice. Then we come back to this texture that we had previously. Back here. Oh, I realized that I actually didn't circle something, which is the double bass. The double bass pits staccato with the timpani. So pits and timpani together, horns emphasizing the higher pitch. Very cool. If you're following along with your own recording, I would recommend pausing and listening like 5 or 6 times to that passage and just going like, do you hear the horn? Do you hear the horn? Does the 2 timpani notes sound balanced? He's doing it again here. Sneaky guy. He also writes secco in the horn part. It's like not a lot of, like dry. Like a drum almost. Okay, so I think that this texture is going to be largely the same as the previous one. The pitch material is all the same. But here's a moment where this is where we would struggle and fall down a little bit if we're our modern composer with a notation software. We'd probably just copy this previous section here. We'd go up here. We go, oh yeah, I wrote a really good 4 bars here. Let's just copy that and then do something different after, or layer a new effect on top or something like that. Put in a different line or I'll move the rhythms around a little bit in here and then it'll be different. But what Stravinsky does instead is he starts up the same texture. It's basically exactly the same, but if you already look, wish I could just get these side by side. In the first bar here, look, the strings are all playing this descending material and the bassoons are doing ascending material. The second time, the strings start doing a flourish right away. So the violas second violins do the descending material, and this time violas start playing this material, which is an additive material that we didn't have last time. And then that allows the first violins to again take off. And this time when they arrive, it looks like all of the strings arrive together. And we actually entirely leave out that big horn gesture with the chromatic slide. Instead, the strings just arrive, and then the trombone plays its little part, which is the same melody that it had last time. Principal material. This is principal material. And then it becomes background material to this material. I'm going to quickly analyze the pitch content of the strings. Oh, oops, my bad. The double bass continue like the double bass continue like all of the like the previous section where the double bass was playing with the rhythmic articulations. This time they continue with the rhythmic articulations. Very interesting. Nothing else in the winds, nothing else in the winds. Okay, pitch material in the strings. E flat dominant 7th in the first violins and second violins. In the viola and cello, we have a C major chord sliding down to a B flat major chord as the strings slide up to an E7 chord. Cool. So he's set up contrary motion for these two chords. So he has C major chord here. And then above that, he has E flat 7. This is the combination that we talked about before. It creates this same chord with the split chord tone. Again, 2 7th chords that you could consider this 2 7th chords as C7 and E flat 7. And together they create split chord tone with a flat 9th. And then he goes down with one and up with the other one. So this one goes up to here, and this one goes down to here. So wondering if this is going to have the same synergy. It doesn't quite have the same synergy. Now we created diminished 7th in the center. But really interesting application. So you can see here the power of having these chords, and then it's chord planing. You take one of the chords and you slide it in one direction, then you have the other chord and you slide it in a different direction. That's going to create a ton of tension in this section, I bet. Let's listen. We'll have to get through to that spot. It won't take long. Okay, so that's the section that we already heard. I feel like I missed a page. Is there a page that I missed? And then this page. Oh no, I didn't miss a page. Okay. I always forget the score, the YouTube video that I'm using for this, it has a score, and the score is a different score than the score I'm reading off of. So all the pages look different, and it really throws me off. You can actually hardly hear that string texture underneath all the brass. What are the brass doing then? This is a C major chord, that's an E major chord, that's a G major chord, E flat major chord. Aha! So he does the gesture once. This is the gesture. Transposing. That's the gesture. Then he does it again, but this time it's all major chords. So same bottom note, but he stacks a major chord on top of each one of those notes, and the major chord just slides around. This is, obviously John Williams loves Stravinsky. It's very clear that John Williams loves Stravinsky because John Williams uses this technique in tons of his orchestral music. It's like that kind of sound where you have like a major chord sliding to another major chord. Very atypical in tonal music, but this kind of chord planing, he uses it all the time. I think it's very clear that he's lifted it directly from Stravinsky as a technique. Again, this piece was written 107 years ago, which is a little bit wild to think about because of how revolutionary it is and how much it stretches us musically even today. Oh, this section. Cool. Look at this. This is great. Okay. We've got some big motion in the winds here, and it looks like he wants to increase that motion. Actually, I was talking to one of my students today in a lesson about this technique. So the technique that he's applying here, look at what happens with his clarinets. The clarinets all come in and they just have a chord and one of them is moving. Then the second one starts moving. Then the third one starts moving. Then the last one starts moving. So this is a way that you can kind of unfreeze a musical texture gradually. You have something that's frozen and then it becomes alive throughout the section. Great application of that. So this guy's alive, then this guy, then this guy, then this guy. And then they're all interacting quickly there at the end. That's really masterful orchestration from Stravinsky. I like this idea here of having the strings play this repeated chord. It is a repeated chord. But it's only 4 violins. So 4 violins soli. I actually have to say that looking at this page, I cannot genuinely tell what is the principal material. Like, I have no idea. What? Okay, maybe this is one of those sections then when Stravinsky kind of freezes the musical momentum. He's just going to do something textural for like 4 or 5 bars, and then or 4 to 8 bars, and then from there he'll go to some other kind of thematic material. Let's see. Yep, that's what he's doing. He's freezing the musical material. So a composer nowadays, like a film composer or something, I think like their approach to this section might be something a little bit more simple, like just writing a couple chords in each bar or a chord in each bar, and then giving everyone a tremolo and giving the strings an arpeggio or the harp a gliss or something like that, and we would do that for 4 bars and then move on. But Stravinsky instead packs a ton of information into this, what's really just holding. I think it's holding or intensifying. I think we're going to hear intensification because of the dynamics in the trumpets. So they're piano, then mezzo piano, and then I bet it's mezzo forte or forte on the next page. Mezzo forte, yeah. So intensifying with the trumpets. Oh no, that's not a break. Okay, I want to listen to this section. Yeah, nothing is happening. Everything is background. Definitely the foreground texture, if we have to pick one, is this. Because we hear that trumpet gesture come out, which is an A flat 7, or A7 chord, sorry. And then, what do the strings have? F sharp 7. A7 and F sharp 7. Guess what the relationship between the 7th chords has been this entire time? A minor third, creating the exact same chord that we've had this entire time. Wow. I think it's kind of staggering when you find something like this in a piece, and the composer has had such economy of means. He just wrote 1 chord, and then the entire piece is about a single chord. Nothing else. Like, we're 7.5 minutes into this piece, and I basically only stumbled across 1 sonority that is dominant this entire time. It's a complex sonority, but he's giving us a lot of time to digest it and chew on it. And maybe we can't decode it with our ears and go, I hear all the chord tones, I really understand what's going on in this piece. But it creates a flavor that is unmistakably this piece. So we have this triplet motion stuff. Triplets like and they're moving around. Guess what they're moving around by? They're moving around by triads. Triads are sliding around. These are triads. And this flute arpeggi or this clarinet arpeggiation is arpeggiating a C7 chord. All right. Oh, it's an E. Sorry. All right, so we got the sevenths arpeggiating in the background. I'm going to say, I think this is background because you're not going to hear it. Again, notes that don't move around you don't hear. This is going to be background because you're definitely not going to hear it. It's not moving. I think that this is activity in the background. And then I think that you have your second layer here, which is all these triplets that he wants, which is basically triads that are just sliding around. All down here. There's some other stuff there, but I think that that's an appropriate response to this, or analysis of this. This is the first time we really get... Yeah. This might be the first time in the piece that we are getting the vast majority of the orchestra that are all coming together and playing at the same time. Mostly we've had, in the first section, the first movement, we had mostly winds the entire time. Then in the second movement, we had some tutti passages, especially at the end, but a lot of it was much more soloistic, building up to a large texture and then coming back. Whereas this movement now is feeling, it feels like it has a lot more saturated textures all the time. So it's almost like from a formal perspective, he's said, okay, I'm going to just focus on the winds for the first movement. Now I'm going to expand to have everyone, and I'm going to reach brief tutis that I pull back from. Then this movement, he's like, we're going to put way more energy in. This is going to be, it's going to be much more amped up most of the time. Like most of the time, there's a lot of people playing in this. I don't know if I've gone through any systems that have been not a full orchestra each page. Okay, so this is this like bop, 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 bop. It's an octatonic scale. I wonder if this chord that he's doing is an octatonic derivative. So it would be like A7 and C7. Or yeah, A7 and C7. Is this an octatonic derivative? You sneaky man, Stravinsky it is. Sweet. It's nice finding things like that. So this chord that he's using is an octatonic derivative. Because of that, you now have a melodic scale that you can use on top of this chord, and it will sound perfectly fine. So again, I tend to advise my students when they start getting into more advanced levels of composition and they're like building their own systems, you need to do analysis of what you're doing and then figure out, like, with the chord that you've created, what systems or already known materials fit into that chord, or what is that chord derived from. So if it's a whole tone structure or something like that, you should know that and then understand that you can now use those materials melodically on top of it. I'm sure that Stravinsky here is just going to slide this chord around like this instead, so playing the chord rather than just use an octatonic scale over a static chord, which is going to create much more excitement in the musical texture. 43, that's where we're going to have to stop today. This project is taking much longer than I thought. I hope that everyone is enjoying it. I am really enjoying the process of going through this piece. This is one of the masterworks, and I've never dug this piece apart to this level of detail. So hopefully you're enjoying it. If you have other pieces that you think that I should pull apart like this, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.